and please remain standing afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
What am I doing?
If I could ask you to remain standing for just a minute. I have a special kind of presentation tonight. And actually, Krista Diefenbach happens to be here to speak anyways. But some time ago, I asked the 11th grade student, Krista Diefenbach, who happens to be a fantastic choral member in our program, to record the national anthem so that we could use it at our sporting events. She did a couple last year for me, and some time ago I said, can you put that on a recording for use at our winter and spring events? This morning, she sent me what you're about to see, her rendition of the national anthem, and it is absolutely remarkable. Krista, now you told me how you did this, but if I understood correctly, Krista used her phone and an app called Acapella, I believe it is, basically a headset with a microphone. She sang a baritone, tenor, and soprano part, each part 3 different times, kind of disguised her voice or used different tonal techniques, right? Each time she did it, so she ended up with 9 parts. She mixed them, I guess whatever the term is, put them together, so it sounds like an entire chorus. And I asked her, how did you sync it so it would all, did you mix it, or how do you get it all to come out on the same note and the same timing? She said she first recorded herself directing it, right? So that when you sang each of those 9 times, you were watching yourself directing it on yet another screen so that you could time yourself perfectly so that you could produce what you're about to see here. So please remain standing. This is Krista Diefenbach, 11th grade student at Tunkhannock High School, singing the national anthem.
Oh, say can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag will, oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Krista, that was absolutely beautiful. I got the same set of goosebumps and misty eyes that I got the first time I watched it this morning. Thank you for doing that. We're going to put that to good use.
Out of all of this confusion and chaos that we feel like we have felt over the course of the last year, okay? That's the kind of innovation. That's the kind of learning that we have done. And so I also have goosebumps, and I just really applaud your efforts. I applaud you helping Mr. Bosher and being an inspiration for everybody. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was fabulous. I'd like to minutes to reflect that we have an executive session prior to the meeting tonight for personnel issues and meeting with our external auditor regarding the audit for the year. Are there any comments on agenda items? Anyone have comments or questions on the agenda items? Okay. Item 4, approval of minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion, comments, or questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 5, business and finance reports. We have-
Motion to approve item 5. 1
Through 6.
through 6.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
No.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 6, superintendent's report.
Asking for motion to approve items 1 through 5 of the superintendent's report.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just wanted to thank Coach Stroney for the years that he put in here at Tunkhannock. He's not here tonight that I can see, but he was the first high school level coach that our family came in contact with, and he really, it kind of set the standard of what we thought we'd expect from our coaches. He taught them a lot more than just soccer on the field. So I'm sad to see him go. Wish he had, maybe 2 more years in him, so Connor had him for the rest of the time, but I wish him the best in his retirement.
Yes, he's done a fine job.
I wanted to add, I'm going to miss Michelle being here, but she's going to be redirecting her efforts to another priority for the next few months, so we'll miss having you in the intermediate center.
Bringing us new customers. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Does anybody have anything on committee reports?
Mr. Farr, if I could just give
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
the board a very quick update. As everybody knows, we, thanks to the efforts of a lot of folks, we were able to bring back cohort A and B very successfully this week. I really want to thank Mr. Bosher, Mr. Ellsworth, Mr. Shapolsky, and all of their staffs, because this was a Herculean effort. And if anybody wants to hang out afterwards, Mr. Bosher has offered to take us to some of these areas that we've repurposed, and to show us a few of the things that what the high school day looks like now. So we're learning as we go. However, the plan that was put together, it worked. It was very successful, and now we're looking forward to bringing back about 75 Fusion C3 kids on April 8th. So that's the next phase. I wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about some of the things that we're planning for summer learning. So as we're looking ahead and we're planning for what are opportunities that we're going to have for kids this summer, we are beginning to wrap our heads around that, and also the staffing for next year. So this is very preliminary, okay? But we're looking at a K-4 Cub Camp, more of a fun experience. And our academic focus would be on numeracy, literacy, and writing. We're lots of outdoor fun. We actually have a couple people that are certified in PE. We're looking at some STEM programming that we would have thematic learning. So in other words, every week may have a theme, followed by a field trip at the end of the week, which would be a sort of a culminating event. We're trying to be flexible in scheduling because we know that some families have trips planned and whatnot, so that is also, we're taking those things into consideration, as well as our teachers. We'd provide breakfast and we would provide lunch, and we would provide transportation. So that's sort of what we're looking at that level. Mary Jean and I have met with some folks that are very interested in participating with that program, or in that programming. And we have a meeting again on April 7th, I believe. So that is in the works. For our 5th through 8th graders, again, we have to look at 5th through 8th grade a little bit differently. So we're looking at grade level mathematics mastery and English language arts mastery. Lots of outdoor activities, lots of STEM activities. Again, having a theme to the week with a field trip or some culminating event at the end of the week. Flexible scheduling, meals provided, transportation. This would be on campus. And I will tell you right now, it will largely be unplugged. We're going to take a break from the devices. So largely unplugged. Now at the high school it looks a little different. So we're going to have credit recovery, which means if a kid did not do well in a class, a kid failed a class, they would have the opportunity to make that class up. And we're looking at ELA, math, social studies, and a few electives. So opportunities for kids to regain that credit. But we're also looking at some enrichment activities for 9th through 12th graders. So these would be courses that we might be able to offer that we typically don't offer, or through dual enrollment, etc. So there may be some opportunities for some of our older students to take some enrichment classes. I wanted to give the community an update. We are back in the substantial community transmission level. This again came from the website of the Department of Health. Our positivity rate is 14.6. It's not quite as high as it was in February, but it has climbed. So we are back in this substantial community transmission. I'm not sure what things will look like next week. I also wanted to review, I know some of you know that the primary center has been closed the last 2 days. They've been working online. I just wanted, again, to review this because we haven't talked about it in a while. But these are the guidelines set down, and it's based on building size. So that's the reason that there's two different thresholds here. So Mahoopany and the primary center, formerly Roslyn Elementary, those are smaller buildings, and they're built for a smaller number of students, whereas the intermediate center and the high school are larger buildings. So the thresholds at those buildings are 4 to 6 students identified, or 4 to 6 staff and students. Whereas at the primary center, once you get into that 2 to 4 range, you're looking at a 3 to 5 day shutdown. And that's in consultation with the Department of Health. We talk to them, we call them, we consult with them, because sometimes those weekend dates can count too. So there's a lot that goes into this, but we are really trying to be vigilant. So these are the cases that we're currently tracking. And I apologize, I couldn't get all of the information tonight from the nurses, but this is updated. So we're tracking 2 at the high school, 2 at the intermediate, 1 at the STEM Academy, 4 at the primary center, and 1 at Mahoopany. So a total of 10 cases.
And Heather, the primary center will reset to 0 on Monday, correct?
Yes, it will reset to 0 on Monday, correct. So, but this is kind of what happens, right? When we have cases, and again, I apologize, I don't have the IC numbers, but, and Mary Jean, just as I was leaving tonight, said, no, I have 10 students out. So this is what happens though. And now these are not positive cases, these are just close contacts, right? And typically where this is coming from is like the bus, or it's happening outside of school. Because in our classrooms, these kids are 6 feet apart. So we're not having to contact trace them, or we're not identifying them as close contacts. It just gives you an idea of what happens. I think that's all I have tonight, unless you guys have any questions. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a tuition attached to that, or is it?
No tuition. Those would be, thank you, Lori. Yeah. All right, so that would be a free, yes.
Just a quick question. With those enrichment activities for the high school, that include like red tile as well, or are students looking at that?
I don't know yet, Craig. We're still working on identifying what that would look like. That's probably the least developed piece of this, but I want to get some things so kids can actually take maybe another course that they couldn't fit in. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Board members? Oh, I'm sorry.
So how is it getting paid for them?
Okay, so we have some grants that are coming in from the federal government, and we must use 20% of that money towards like credit recovery, towards academic gap, closing that academic gap. So whereas I do not have any kind of criteria established for this yet, I mean, we're still looking at the numbers. We should have that next week. We would not be charging tuition for anybody that wants to do this.
And what would a day be like a start to end for the student?
I don't know yet. I haven't gotten that far yet, okay? But yeah, I want you to understand that we're starting to work on this, and that it would be free, that there would be transportation, and there would be meals.
And this would be required, like in summer school, like for students who are falling behind, or if you want your kid to go, or?
Probably both, all right? But I don't have the details on that yet. I will. I want to say one more thing about this, though. We are attracting a large number of education majors. Okay, so these are kids, we've put this out to our staff, and we've had a number of our staff say, yes, I want to be part of this. If you know, or if you are, a college student that has 60 credits in an educational program, we would love to have you email me or Mrs. Egan and say, hey, I'm available this summer. Even if you're only available for 4 weeks, we will use you for 4 weeks. So anybody that's returning home from college that is an education major, please, please, please reach out to us, because we could use your help. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do some things differently. But I would like to have as many people involved in this as possible, to have very small groups of kids. So, any other questions? I'm glad I remembered to say that, because I wanted to put in a plug. It's posted on the website as well, and we have talked with all the universities that are local, but not all kids, not all ed majors are local. So, if you know of anybody, please have them reach out to me. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the administration, staff, for putting together the plan and executing in high school. Specifically, Todd and John. You guys, I saw you working around the clock kind of at times, weekends, and so I really appreciate the hard work, the planning, and then our teaching staff. We have people teaching in different places that they're not used to, so just a really good overall effort, and I'm really happy to see it, so thank you very much.
And I believe our administrators are telling us that the principals in high school, that kids are happy to be back 4 days a week, happy to be back with their other friends.
4 fantastic days.
They're all back together, I mean, other than ones that are on campus. So that's a great sign.
I can tell you that there were literally tears of joy on Monday morning when students and teachers saw each other again for the first time in months. Students who hadn't seen each other literally since last year. And it was a joyful reunion on Monday. And it's been really just a healthy environment. The senior advisors, senior class advisors, Ms. Demi and Ms. Fiorillo and Mrs. Shao came in on Sunday afternoon and decorated the halls, brought senior hallway, brought some of the memorabilia from their senior float, from last year's float into the building. We had the drum line out in front of the building on Monday morning to welcome the students back. The junior class and the senior class advisors have gone around and decorated the hallways with students' names, all the senior class names. It's starting to feel alive again. Plus, of course, today, if you saw the campus on your way in, the sports teams are out there. It's just been, we're really proud of our new banners out there on the light poles, and the campus is just alive and abuzz with activity. It feels good. Really exciting.
Wonderful.
I also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Egan, because 7th grade is sort of the anomaly, but 7th graders worked really hard to come up with a plan to bring those students back to it, and so that's been very successful.
Yeah, and I should not have left you out of that, so I apologize. And I will say also, 7th grade coming into this had some pretty impressive plans for what they were doing and how they were handling the virtual stuff. And so that live streaming that was going on there, even up to this point, was great. So thank you.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park. You know, they'd had a couple of years practice with the Canvas and platforms and all kind of stuff, but they really seem to have stepped up. I've heard a lot of good things about the 7th grade teachers. I also just wanted to say, I know that there was some skepticism about how it was going to work, having kids in tents or in the auditorium and things like that. I can say my younger son in 8th grade doesn't have, I don't think, a single class in the classroom at this point because of the classroom sizes, and that was not even on his radar as being a problem when he got home. The only thing he was disappointed about was that all his teachers knew better than to put him next to his friend in class. Like that, but that friend who Sunday night they were all talking for like an hour in text messages and phone calls about just being able to see each other all at the same time the next day. That hadn't happened since they went home last year on March 13th. So it was very exciting at our house.
Yes. Glad to get a few steps back towards normal life. Okay. Anything on for committee reports? Okay, nothing. New business. The Visa account is there for your review, as well as the summaries of the Kelly Services substitute teacher fill rate. We have some other additional items. Item 3, the career interest survey. Looking for a approval for that.
Second.
The motion and the second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Perry? Yes. Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 4, looking for approval for the high school curriculum guide. Has there been any changes this year?
So, yeah, well, I'll say from the curriculum committee, the booklet went around. There weren't any major changes, but one thing I thought was really interesting, like with everything that's on everybody's plate right now, they were still going back through and optimizing this in places where it probably didn't even need to be done this year in that way. Like, I like that the attention didn't stop on the stuff that we would have been doing if COVID wasn't here. So correct me if I'm wrong, or you guys can speak to it. There's one change on math that they changed a prereq for geometry before Algebra 2. And then the other thing was in the CTC programs, we changed some of the names and the organization of some of those programs. And Greg, if you want to talk more to that, you can. But
every year we realign a lot of our curriculum to meet the standards of industry, both locally and the state. So we go about doing that. We just condense some things, combine the two areas, and we always try to update some of the titles. So that, when people are looking at it, it's up-to-date names, up-to-date concepts, so the kids know, so the parents understand what they're looking at in the curriculum guide. And there's some sales that goes into that too as well. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 5 is looking for a resolution to approve the independent audit by Murphy, Doherty and Company.
Second.
This is an annual audit that we perform. All school districts are required to do an annual audit. Mr. Berg, can you give us some details of that?
Yep, just a couple of comments on that. So like Phil said, this is an annual audit, and we received a favorable rating from the independent auditor. So the financial statements, we believe, are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We had for that year ending $48.6 million of income with $47.5 million of expenditures. And so we were able to end with a fund balance of $5.7 million. The outstanding item that still remains, and the reason why we carry a fund balance that large plus a little bit extra, is that pension liabilities continue to be a large item. And so the district's pension liabilities are just about $67 million if we look at our payroll.
Can you say that again? 67 million.
Correct. Yeah.
In pension liabilities.
So we run a payroll of about 19 million, and so our pension liabilities are 66 million. That includes our share at a state level for what our payroll is.
Yeah. And our contribution percentage of payroll this year is like 35% roughly. So for every dollar that we pay 35 cents additional for pension.
And that goes up to, didn't they say 35% next year? About?
Christine said a little shy of that. So the projections, we had discussed this, I think, over the last couple of years. I think after a few years, the anticipation was that percentage would start to flatten out, but unfortunately that trend has not yet manifested. So we are still seeing increases year on year.
Well, a few years before that, it was supposed to be going up and then come back down again. Then it was going to go up and level out. Now it just keeps going up. Yeah. So this.
And to make sure that everybody understands, that is not something that the district can influence. That is a fixed number that is established by the state based on the pension commitments that the state contractually is obligated to.
Yeah. They tell us how much. We don't have a choice. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments on the audit?
The only other thing I will comment, this is more of a historical item. Back in 07, 08, that percentage was about 8%, and so 33% of our payroll today, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of Tuncanic's on the hook on a yearly basis of about $3.2 million. And so I don't have the payroll from 2007 with me, but if you look at the differential there, let's call it somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000. And so from a local district's perspective, $2.5 million of our income goes toward pension liabilities versus 13, 14 years ago, that was less than $1 million. And so that's, it's a commitment, we have to pay it, but it does make educating very difficult with maintaining buildings and quality programs, knowing a good portion of that goes toward pension obligations.
Yeah, that's an uncontrollable cost for us.
Right.
Okay.
I would also just throw out there, for anybody who's not familiar, this is the audited financials. Like they said, that's just the routine thing. Once that is approved by the board, it goes online, and it is 1 year behind. So if you were to go onto the school district website now and go to budget and audited financials, you'll see all the school year budgets, and then the next category down is all of the audited financial reports. So this one will be added to that. The most recent one up there now is 18-19. This will be 19-20. So there is no secret here. It's just the procedure is we have to accept it or challenge it, and we're accepting it, and then it'll be posted online.
Thank you, Holly. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Perry? Yes. Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Item 6, superintendent's contract. Contract is coming up, and this is the meeting that we need to decide on a additional. It's been proposed a 3-year contract. Everything else remaining the same, with the exception of the addition of a health insurance benefit waiver, identical to what is found in the teacher's contract. So it'll be for 3 years.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to thank Heather for the work that she's done over the past few years, and I'm looking forward to working with her over the next few years. If we look back at, I think it's been 4 years now, 5. Okay, time goes by quickly, and so
Maybe for you.
right. Maybe for me, but not so much.
This year drug on.
Yeah. And it's been a really challenging couple of years from a payroll perspective. One of the reasons why you were brought in was to try to control costs and get us to a balanced budget, and that was done pretty quickly. And that's a pretty momentous task that you led up with, obviously, the team that you're working with. We went through the charter school as a possible change in our district. We went through consolidation as part of that, and obviously now we can add COVID to the list. So it's not been an easy 4 years. But thank you for the work you've been doing, and looking forward to the next few years.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Bob?
Is there an implied percentage increase?
Percentage increases are based on the evaluation, and it's the same percentages that were in the current contract. So if it gives a good evaluation, it's a higher percentage. Poor evaluation, it's a lower percentage. Job performance.
I'm gonna steal Missy Bonis's thing that she would be here saying if she were here tonight and not just watching from home. That this is all that we've accomplished in these 5 years with the budget, with consolidation, with the charter school, with the COVID, with all these things. And while Heather and I might not always see eye to eye on things, I can only imagine what we can do because we came so far, so already, even amongst those challenges. So if we don't have another COVID or another charter school or another consolidation or any of those things in the next 3 to 5 years, I don't know what this school can look like in that amount of time. So I'm really excited to see that. And thank you.
Yes. The very much different situation that we're in than we found ourselves 5 or 6 years ago. So we're very pleased about that. Okay, anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Perry? Yes. Mr. Swilling? No. Mrs. Gerweidner?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
My name is Teresa Pasolka. Just a couple general questions. The CDC, as you know, changed the guidelines for spacing from 6 to 3 feet, citing a study in Massachusetts schools saying there was no difference in transmission between 3 and 6 feet. Is that going to have any impact on how things are arranged now?
It is not, and there's 2 reasons. One is, Shay can explain this in more detail. By the CDC guidelines, we're still in a high transmission rate. Until the Department of Health would change their standard for contact tracing, which is still 6 feet, we're not going to compress. So we believe we can bring kids that want to come back. We believe we can bring them back. We can still continue to socially distance. Remember, not all of our staff is vaccinated yet, right? We can still continue on this path. If the Department of Health changes the contact tracing, then we'll consider it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
The only thing I will add too is, Teresa, the CDC guidelines 7 through 12 is cohorting, and so it's 6 feet unless you're cohorting, which we're not doing. So the guideline didn't change what we're doing 7 through 12.
Yeah, there is a difference between elementary and high school in their guidelines.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And I see that you're working on a plan for the summer. I've asked several weeks ago, have you started working on a plan for the fall? And do you have any information on what that is going to look like?
I do not. Not prepared to share with you tonight, but we are starting staffing discussions.
Okay.
Where we're going to have people placed.
Can I ask, does it involve 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless or until that changes.
Well, obviously, I mean, I don't expect you to have a crystal ball and predict what's going to happen in the fall, and if cases go up dramatically again, I don't expect 5 days a week. I would like that to be plan A. Of course, you're going to have multiple options, but I ask that if plan B or C involves having to go partially or completely virtual, I suggest or ask that we take a hard look at how it went this last time and make several adjustments so it goes a lot better. I mean, on many levels, technically, you know, curriculum, everything, because that is a possibility that that could happen again. And so I think we should just take a step and learn from what didn't go well, because it seems like a lot of things could have gone better.
Teresa, I personally, okay, can tell you that every day we are learning. And every day we are attempting to get better. And if what that man and that team over there did to accomplish bringing folks back isn't evidence of that, I don't know what is. We're not perfect. It hasn't been perfect from the beginning, but we have been trying to make it better. We have tried to learn. We don't know what we don't know.
I understand that, and I'm not implying criticism. I'm just saying,
I'm not taking it as criticism, okay? But what I need you to understand is every day we learn something new, and every day we try to make it better. And That is the motto of this team. And it may not appear that way, but I promise you that everybody on this team believes in that, and we strive for that. And next year will be better.
Okay.
Okay? I promise.
I think one benefit is that we've now shown that we can have the kids here socially distanced. I would struggle to see a scenario in which they're still calling for 6 feet of distancing in the fall, so that could only work to our benefit, even if there is still some aspect of social distancing in the plan. Even if there was some aspect of some kind of masking, only if we had no option. I think it's going to be the biggest thing we're going to have going forward from this year, which has been a huge struggle, but it's going to pay off, is having our curriculum online. We won't need to rebuild that from scratch in the fall if we were to have to use it. And let's be honest, there are going to be a large number of families that even if we return to completely normal school in the fall, they're going to choose to continue using the C3 program. And we're going to be ahead of the game because they'll be able to use our program and not Agora and not Commonwealth Charter or what some of those other ones are.
Not only that, Holly, but we don't even have to purchase a canned program.
Right.
Because we have our own.
Yes, and that was some confusion. I saw it as recently as this week, that we don't, we certainly have had C3 before this. Dr. Carroll's been running it before. Why are we now having to do this? And it's because in the past we had such a low number of students that were using it that we didn't build our own curriculum for it. Right. And now we are. So that is what that change was. That's what the shift was. So that is a hardship that we're carrying this year amongst all the other hardships, but it is going to pay off in the end. And that's a growing pain that, of all the other things that, all the other pains this year, that's one that will actually be able to get some equity in.
The package program, accelerated education, which was purchased, which is at a great cost. This is not our own curriculum, so what they did in Brick and Mortar was much different than what we did on Fusion, and now everything has equity because it's the same program.
And not only that, and I mean, maybe nobody else even needs to hear this, but it's something that I'm excited about. It's going to have a benefit outside because, like Dr. Carroll just said, we didn't have our program online. So your kid is going out and having surgery and going to be out of school for 6 weeks. They can jump on that program, which doesn't match what they're doing in class at all when they return, or now they'll be able to get on our own program with their own curriculum and have less of a gap or less of an adjustment to that. And I can't think, I'm sure there have to be other scenarios where this is going to be a benefit besides just those narrow, limited things that I can think of. So it will be good. We won't have to do that in the fall. That should eliminate some of the time out of school if we were to have other COVID-related stuff or whatever the next pandemic that we have is. I think a lot of those things will be worked out already, and I know I personally, as a school board member, can't speak for anybody else. When you talk, Teresa, when you talk about like Plan A, I'm talking about Plan capital A in bold letters, underlined it, whatever. You want to talk about the other ones, like that's only if we have no other option, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, as you know, I'm Krista Diefenbach, and I'm a junior here at the high school. As many of you know, I am a very active member in our music department. As a community, we have seen how things have changed due to COVID. Most things have altered to accommodate proper social distancing and CDC guidelines so sports and other activities could occur. My suggestion is to shed a little light on our music department. I know that there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to doing music safely. I also know that this decision on the matter might not involve all of you, but it has been really rough on me as well as my other musical peers to watch sports having things going on while we have just had 1/4 of our marching band season. Us chorus kids haven't sung in person since last March. Another thing to mention is that with us back to 4 days a week, we don't have the time in our schedule anymore to sing. Before, we would sing during our class time at home on the days we didn't go to school. Now, in order to keep up with the voice parts in the songs, we need to use our own time to practice and more. Singing is a craft, and in order to get better, we need to have constant practice just like sports. With that comes comments from our teachers telling us what we are doing right and what we can do better. The feedback from our teacher is a crucial part to develop musical skills. As I said before, I know there are a lot of unknowns, but I just wanted to share how we're feeling and ask that you shed some light on this subject in the future so that us music kids could have a little bit of normalcy too. Thank you for all that you guys have done. It has been truly incredible to be part of this district, and have a great night as well as an Easter break.
Thank you.
Krista, stay tuned. It's in the works, okay? All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, Bobby Jo Root. I have a daughter in 12th grade and one in 10th grade. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank you all for the work that you're doing in trying to put together a summer program. I appreciate that, and I'm really anxious to see more details on that. As far as looking at the fall, I know it's still a little early, but of course as parents we're all anxious to see what that may look like. At the high school level, typically schedules for the kids start around this time of year? Is it April or May?
The kids start scheduling.
Right.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
that usually in April or May?
Yes.
Okay, so when they start scheduling, how are we looking at building class sizes and stuff? Like when, I know you can't answer us today, but when do you plan to have a plan in place for the fall and what that's going to look like?
I know that there have been things that have been started already at the high school level. So they are looking at what needs to be offered. They're looking at scope and sequence. Todd, I don't know whether you want to add to that.
The very first step, and just the very first step to scheduling is getting that curriculum guide approved. So now that that's taking place, we're actually meeting with the school counselors tomorrow to take it to the next, to get that ball rolling. The school counselors are poised and ready. Math teachers are making recommendations. They're handing those in this week. We're looking at the students coming back to Fusion C3 for April 8th. I mean, literally, like tonight was the tipping point to get those wheels in motion. We are very pleased to have the students in the building. And last year we did that. We used an online model for scheduling. We learned a lot about doing it online, but we learned that we prefer to do it in person. Now that we have, well over 2/3 of our student body in the building, we'll be able to do that face to face again. Which is much more effective. But literally tonight was the first step in scheduling for the fall.
Okay, so when we're looking at scheduling for the fall, are we going to be considering the class sizes in case we would be in a similar situation come next November, so that we don't have to utilize tents and extra spaces? Are we trying to minimize the number of kids in a class, or how is that going to affect, I guess, classes offered in scheduling?
A lot of class size is largely dictated by staffing. The staff members are able to return to fall, staff members that aren't able to return to fall, staff that have some retirements. I know there's some grant funding going on, and a lot of it comes down to class size is largely driven by staffing.
Okay.
And requests by kids.
Yes.
Because, if only 2 kids request a class, we're not going to run the class.
Okay.
So,
Do you
yeah.
think it would be fair to say that by the end of this school year, we'll have an idea of what the fall is going to look like?
You will have an idea to the best of my ability to give you
Based on the situation of where we're at?
based on what I have in June. I just don't know what it's going to look like. I do agree with Holly, though. I don't foresee us coming into the fall with as rigid of a social distancing guideline as what we have right now. So maybe 4 feet. So we're going to go back into our classrooms. We're going to look at what does 4 feet look like. It may not look much different than it looked last April.
Okay.
Or February.
So obviously,
April it was empty.
Obviously, we learned a lot this year, and a lot of
Yes.
it had to be as a reaction more than being proactive, just because of what was thrown at us. But now,
Yeah.
having learned what we have learned, and I know that we're always learning something new, but are we going to take that into consideration so that we have our plan A, as Holly said earlier, in place, but that we have our B and C already ready for when it blows up? Because I think this year, obviously, it was very difficult to do that, but now that we have that experience, I think that's maybe even where Teresa was coming
We know a lot
from.
more than we did.
Okay, so I'll look
And
forward
we are a lot more agile than we were.
Okay, so I'll look forward to the upcoming board meetings when we learn more about the summer program and hopefully our plan for the fall.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.